Hello again, this is UML Operator. All right, in this session we're going to talk about one of my most favorite tabs, the Construct tab. Why is this my favorite? Well, it has to do with delivery, which you might call project management, program management, etc., but delivery. So let's get started. All right, I really could talk for hours on this subject, so I'm going to have to be careful. All right, so bear with me. We're going to be talking about the resource management group or panel, test management group, change management group, and project management group. So in this session, I'm just going to create some placeholders for requirements, whether we're talking about requirements elements, or we're talking about user stories, or we're talking about features. Okay, so these are just things that I'm putting in place to have this conversation as quick as possible across these various panels. Okay, so in the resource management panel or group, I'm going to probably call it group more than panel, we start with Kanban and we hit this little down caret here. We have all sorts of choices. So if your project already has Kanban diagrams in it, let's go ahead and select it. It instantly uses the search capabilities in Sparx through the SQL database to find what those are, and we'll get back to that later. The next selection is Open My Kanban. So I select this. There is nothing started. This area, let me hit this again, My Places. This has to do with personalizing the Sparx EA connectivity into a SQL database with a team or the cloud with a team. So you can't manage saw grayed out because you have to have security enabled, and we'll talk about that in a later session. The next area category within is model places. Now this is tailored to your individual local or Sparx EA desktop implementation. We went a little slow on that one because we danced between working in local environments versus working in team environments. And in this session, I'm only focused on working in a local environment. So let's say that you have in your project, your model place, you have a Kanban project diagram selected. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this. So it says there, if configured, it will do what you just saw right there. Let me do it again. So we go here, open project Kanban, goes right to it, right? So how did I do that? Well, you go to model places, manage, and you can come in here and choose. You can clear, which clears out any selection. You can choose, and it goes to where you have whatever Kanban that you're talking about, and it will load that. Let's just set the backlog Kanban. Then we're going to go here, open, goes right to the backlog Kanban, right? Now this set as default is different than what we spoke about in the Start tab with Model Home. So you can choose, like if I reload this demo project here, you can choose what loads with that click of that link, what loads by default. And in this case, this particular model I wanted to load by default. However, let's go to Construct again. Let's go here. Let's go open the default that we configured, Kanban. That's different, okay? So when we'll get into this more later in another session, especially when we're talking about model sets and shortcuts and things like that. But this is how you choose which Kanban that you want to bring up, that you want to have focus, and it may change. You'll come in here and say, hey, today we're not looking at backlog, we're back to looking at basic. And so what we want to do in this particular exercise is that we want to understand the priority, all right, of the particular requirements, scope items, defects, etc. All right, we're going to then go into new. Now this creates Kanbans for you, 4 different types of Kanban: standard, backlog, iteration, and complete. So if you're in a package that has stories or doesn't have stories, you might have your stories, your requirements, your features in separate folders. But when you go in there, I've already created a basic, a backlog, and iteration. So let's select complete, new complete. So it creates a new complete, and I'm going to move this down to the bottom there. and you learn how to do that in previous videos. It sets it up for you, right? I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. So ready for release, staging, production, and done, right? So you can double click in these areas and it brings up a configuration for the Kanban. Let me do that again. Double click anywhere in the Kanban, it brings up configuration, configuring sublanes, appearance, etc. Right? So usually the first thing I do is I go to appearance and I want to use Kanban drawing style. So I select this, gives me some options. Now, I'm not going to select anything right. By default icon is there, but I'm just going to hit OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some stories. Let's see here. Backlog done. Feature 2 is done, and these are in progress. Let's just bring in feature 2. So if we go down here to features, feature 2, let's just bring this in and run it through a cycle, right? So I'm dropping in as a link, letting go, and I'm going to cover this more in details as we're going forward. So this particular feature is assigned to UML operator, and that was done when we're over that package, and I'll talk about that in a moment when we get to resources. But as this is moving from ready for release, and it's maybe moving to your stage environment, you might have a 3-tier implementation, development stage, and then production. So it's in development, move back here, it's moved to your staging environment, and then it's moved to production, and it goes through some warranty, friendly user testing, user acceptance testing, and production. Just as probably what happened with user acceptance testing and staging. We'll talk all about this later in other sessions when we're doing real projects. And then you're done. You move it to done. So you're able to move it through the life cycle really quickly. You just created a Kanban for you, Sparx did, and you bring in the items that are in your release train or your release strategy, your software configuration management, governance, all those fun things we're going to talk about, and you can cycle it through using this Kanban. All right, let's move into the next one, and those are workflow patterns. Sparx has set up a 1-step workflow, a 2-step workflow, and a 3-step workflow. They're utilizing patterns. So let's go all the way up to the top of this particular conversation. The package or namespace is construct, and so we're going to work right here in creating these. So we're going to go back to Kanban in the resource management panel and one stage. So what it's doing right now is applying a pattern called one-stage workflow. And this is a one-stage workflow. It's a quick sprint, quick release. A couple of you got together and said, hey, let's get this out kind of thing. And it's setting up for you. It pre-populates some examples in here for you that you can get started. So you got a user story, you have a feature, you have a defect in queue, you have in progress another user story, and then you have a defect, and then you have change request. So each one of these icons you'll learn about. Let me roll back over to the top. So this icon right here means user story. This plus icon means feature. A nice little bug. What do you think that means? It means bug or defect. And then this iterative icon means change. It's taking place. All right, change was requested. All right, and then these icons mean if I double click on it, it'll tell you, I'll just show you. Didn't want to click on that one, priority. So if I change this to high, then hit apply, there we go. It turned to red, right? So red is high, yellow is medium, and what is low? I don't remember. We're going back to properties. There we go. Let's set priority to low. What color is that? Oh, it just takes it away. That's probably why I don't even know what it is. So there's no priority, or it's so low it's not even worth recognizing. But let's take it back to where it was, right? So we're going to take the priority back to medium, hit OK, and then we're back to where we were when we started. So let's create a 2-stage workflow. And this, if I was to do it at this package, it would put the 2-stage workflow under this package. We don't want to do that. So you can target any package namespace that you want. Let's go back up to construct. We're going to go here. Let's do a 2-stage workflow. All right, that builds the Kanbans out for you. So 2-stage, the first one's backlog, and the second stage, final stage, is development, right? So queue, in progress, test, released, boom, done. And let me zoom out, deploy, and then it has a package right here. I can Alt G on it, it's just taking me to where that is, all right? So let's go to the next one. This is 3-stage. So all the way up, so it created a 2-stage. Let me move this package down right above 2-stage, and let's create a 3-stage. So go back up to resource management panel or group. We're gonna go 3-stage. We're on construct. It's going down and it's creating a 3-stage. 3-stage 1 is backlog. Stage 2 is development, and the last stage is release. So let's open these up. So backlog, then we go into development, right? And then we go into release, okay? So it builds these for you, sets some elements that you can get started with, at least to understand utilizing the pattern. Lots of ways to get to these patterns. You can do it right here in the resource management tab. Now we're still in the resource management panel here, and the next item we're going to go over to in this panel or group is resources. Resource management makes sense. Resources. So you can select any element that's in delivery, any element, right? And you can choose resources. And we'll say, hey, this particular element, there's a resource assigned to it, and then you have a typical Gantt view. We'll talk about that in a moment when we get to Gantt. And you can click on this one. 2 resources have been assigned. On this change, no resources have been assigned. On this element, this user story 3, 1 resource is assigned. Feature, 1 resource is assigned. No resources to this defect that's in progress, which is kind of weird. And then you have something that's done, 1 resource was assigned. So you're able to select an element, and let's go back to user story 1, and you can add a resource, right? So you get this dialog box that pops up there where you can select whatever your resources are. Now this is a fictitious resource database, right? These are all fictitious. You'd have real names of your teams. This thing could get pretty long and large, but you can have real names in here. Let's go ahead and assign myself, Tim Aykroyd, to this particular resource. What's my role? And I can choose between roles. And I wear lots of different hats in a small development shop. In this particular case, I'm going to give myself business analyst, right? I'm going to act as the business analyst representing the client to the solution architect, who happens to be UML operator. And you can set start and end dates, right? And we're just going to leave this 1 day in here, and we're going to save and close. So now on user story 1, we have 2 resources that are assigned. And you can come in here and you can delete resources, and you can do other things that we'll talk about much later. I'm already going too long on this session, all right? So resources at the element level, regardless, if it's a change, if it's a defect, if it's a new feature, or existing feature, or a user story, or anything else, a requirement, I could go on and on. You can assign resources to work and then work it through a Gantt, which we'll talk about in just a moment, to help manage the delivery lifecycle within whatever effort you're in. So let's go over to Construct Basic before I move on to Gantt, all right? So in this particular case, you've got low, medium, high. So this is a basic Kanban, right? In it, because we have resources assigned, and we really only have icons still turned on, right? If we go to appearance, we just have icon turned on. You can go type, you can go status, you can make the name bold. What other things do I want? The author, no, I'm not going to do that one. Anything you want, you can add tag values. We're not going to do that either. I'm just going to hit apply or hit OK. And I've added those elements to my Kanban representation, my elements. So in this particular case, got user story, got UML operator assigned as a solution architect, and I have Tim Aykroyd assigned as a tester. And this resource hasn't even started yet, right? Probably because it's low priority, right? Tim's working on this stuff. Oh, critical. He hasn't started anything here either. So if you go in on this particular resource, and we're going to do it from the Gantt view, you can manage where they are. So let's go to Gantt next. All right, while we're still in the resource management group, we're going to go to Gantt. We're going to hit this down caret right here. You have My Gantt, and then you have Project Gantt View. We're going to start with My Gantt View. Now what this is because I'm UML operator associated with this Sparx implementation, it's showing everything that I'm assigned to. And it's showing that this is in red jeopardy. It's late. And I can come in and double click on this. I can open up properties. And this was supposed to be done by the 14th. We're going to go ahead and change the date. We're going to slip it out to the 16th. And I'm going to hit OK. All right, now it updates the Gantt. So this is no longer in red jeopardy. And I can come in here. I'm going to double click on it again. And there usually would be a massive description, hopefully, of what the resource assignment is, duties, and what I'm doing, as well as history. So here it's empty right now. I can log down as I'm working through iterative cycles, working with others. I can put dates, times of what I'm working on, and so on. So 10% complete, go back over to description, or in history, I can change, well, I'm now 50%, right? So I'm now 50%. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It changes how much where I am. Today's the 15th. I'm halfway through my work on this day, on this item, planning on being done on the 16th. So let's go to Gantt. We're going to go to Project Gantt View. So in this one, we're showing all the resources. Now this is fictitious. There's only 2 resources. You certainly would have, at least 5 resources that are working on a particular effort, and it's showing where they are on whatever the deliverable is for each one of the elements that you've assigned some sort of task or role to, with a start and end date, right? And then this is % complete. You can always change these titles here and put that. You can also click within the Gantt view and hold down, the control key, roll your mouse button, you can zoom in and out. Of course, in scaled agile, usually your release trains are 10 weeks. In regular agile, your sprints may be in 1 or 2 weeks, 5 or 10 days. Whatever scales you have, you can set here, you can configure and expose within your Gantt views. All right, next in the resource management is history. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And for me, it popped up, history window popped up in the lower right. What I'm going to do is drag and drop this just out here to leave it hanging, okay? So you can, look across resources, testing history, maintenance history. Let's just focus on this tab at this time. So I'm going to right click in here, visible timeline. So this is just what happened today, all right? I want to look back 3 days. I want to look back 30 days, all right? I want to look back minus 30 days from today. So I'm looking backwards. You see these plus minuses. I want to look back 3 days. I want to look back 7 days. So you can slice and dice your construction history, construct history, to see what's going on. All right. Check for update entry. You want to check every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. So this is useful when you're working in a team environment and you're tracking what everyone's doing. You can do a refresh. All it's doing is refreshing the database. What else? Set this tab as default. I'm not going to do that right now. And of course, there's a help. All right. So very, very useful tooling in resource management to understand where your team is in delivery. All right, next in the resource management panel, let's look at these 3: active, completed, and summary. So these are basically, you have the magnifying glass represents search capability. So we're going to go in active. Well, let's search for active tasks. So these are the active tasks that are going on at this particular point. We want to look at tasks that end today. This is just the one. Oops, back to active. That's our starting today. So let's just search through overdue tasks. Well, we don't have an overdue task anymore. We rectified that before Jeopardy was filed. So we can go into completed, same search capability, recently completed, nothing's been completed recently, all completed, nothing's been completed, all right? So summary, I want to look at 30-day task summary, brief or full, resources and roles. I'm not going to click through these, but this is the summary task summary, which is just a brief overview. If I go into a full overview, same search results. You can come in here and add if there's available fields for you. You can drag and drop fields in, just like any of the search windows. We'll talk more about that later when we get to search and so on. So that concludes the resource management panel or group. Let's move over to test management group. All right, in the test management group, we got tests, you have outcomes, you have history, tests that aren't run, not checked, etc. I'm going to skim over these because we're not in a real project where we've got test cases and they're in any type of iteration or status. So I'm just going to step through these. So test, this basically says, hey, I want to look at all tests, or you can look at various types of tests that may be taking place, and you can quickly see that. So when I select this, test cases comes over on the right and it's empty. And I can look full test, unit test, inspection, integration, system, scenario, and acceptance. So you have all sorts of different stages in testing that's taking place. There's even more than this, but this pretty much covers the whole gambit when it comes to testing, right? Outcomes, you're able to recent test results. It goes to say, hey, in this particular one, these two test cases, I can go look at this test case, and this is just an example. Don't get, carried away. So, you're able to auto-generate these test cases based on scenarios, and that's a later subject, that we will cover, but you're going to have many, many test cases on even a small software effort, and you can come out and look at those recent test passes, etc. Right? And then history, same thing, construct history on test. You'll see the results there as you're going forward. You can do a search on tests that are not run, tests that are not checked, right? So it filters the Sparx SQL database for you. It pulls out the statuses of this, who's working on what, when, and why, and very quickly for test management. All right, next is a very important group or panel, and that's change management. And again, when we get to a real project, later sessions, we'll be showing how this works in Sparx on those particular delivery efforts. So from left to right, you have maintenance. So for me, the window pops up in the lower right. Let me just move it here. And you have maintenance, features, changes, issues, defects, etc. Right? So I'm going to select history, and you have construct history, resources, test, maintenance. There's no test or maintenance going on right now, so there's nothing to expose or report on. Right? Features, show features window. So that zoomed right in the maintenance window, went right to the features tab. Changes, show change workflow, went right to the change tab in the maintenance window. Document, show document window, went right to the document tab in the maintenance window. We're going to go to issues, show issues, went right to the issues tab in the maintenance window. And you're starting to get a hang for what these windows are, these tools are, and how you can access them. So show defects, where I hang out most during a delivery exercise. What defects are being reported goes right to the tab within the maintenance window. So you're maintaining your release, you're maintaining your code deployment, you're testing and everything else. So task, show the task, goes right to the task. Let's do it again. So I'll make sure I get this right. Goes right to the task. I went to click on the construct task tab in the maintenance window, right? So that concludes change management group. A lot going on right here. When you have more data in your modeling, your model-driven development, model-driven delivery environment, your Sparx project, you have access to a lot of tooling that can expose where you are, where your team is in delivery objectives. Right, the next panel or group is most exciting to project managers. So to the project managers that are out there, the program managers, you're going to be hanging out a lot if your team is using Sparx Enterprise Architect in the construct tab in the project management group. All right, so in this panel, we have decisions, so we can show the Project tools for decisions. There's no decisions. You can add decisions here as you're going through all of the other work ever, making project management decisions and so on, working with the team. You can look at verify decisions, new decisions. So if you're in a team environment, and we'll get there, a lot of stakeholders may be making new decisions from various perspectives, views, and viewpoints, right? So you want to be able to track who's doing what, when, and why, right? So when you go to events, and I select events and it shows event window, it went right to the event tab in the project tools. Let's drag this out, put it out here so we can all see it. And let's click on the next one, all right? Same thing, high priority events, recently reported events, chart, you can generate charts, all that fun stuff we'll get into. You can open outstanding events. So when I go to that, behind this, you see using the search engine, it looked at outstanding events. And in a real project, it'd be much more than this, so on that's going on here. So next is issue, project tasks. So when I did that, it opened up Sparx Find for tasks. And so the project management team, stakeholders, they can open up new tasks, they can filter tasks, do lots of things. They can delete tasks. Be careful there as you're going through. So what else we got in here? Project issues. Brought up another search panel around issues. You can add new issues, manage new issues, filter issues, all of those things. So when we get a real project that has these things in them, it'll make more sense, right? So the next window over, I'm going to close everything we're going to talk about, is around QA, right? So QA reports and statistics. So let's go ahead and get to that subject next. So in project management, over here in quality assurance, and that's what QA means to me, hope it means that to Sparx, you have two selections, QA reports and statistics. I'm going to start with statistics because I want to get it out of the way, right? So when you go to it, it's basically exposing the stats for your Sparx Enterprise Architect project. So this is the metrics from the SQL database. So in this particular project, we have 36 packages, 35 diagrams, 120 elements, etc. Right? So it's just giving you an idea of the size and complexity of the project and an understanding of what's going on in a particular project. Now, most of my projects are extremely large, so these numbers are usually in the hundreds and thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands. But it just depends on your software configuration management, your release strategy, your program increments, what methodology you're using, and so on. You might do a Sparx project per program increment. You might do a Sparx project per sprint. It's totally up to you, but this gives you an idea of the size and shape of your particular project. All right, now in QA, we're going to get the QA reports. I'm going to go ahead and select this. And when I do, I get this window that pops up that allows me to query testing details around various root packages. All sorts of sorting features in here by individuals, resources that are there, the type of test, unit, all the way to inspection, acceptance, status, what you want to filter out, what passed, what failed, not run. You want to look at all. There's nothing really going on in this demo project, but when we get to a real project, you're able to refresh that, run reports, and of course, help's always available for you and brings up Sparx Help on the testing report that's available for you to use. All right, so let's see here. What else do I want to look at? Oh, across the tabs. So testing details, maintenance details, dependency details. This one is critical, but we'll talk about that when we get to the subject. Implementation details, another critical tab within the QA reports, and then use case metrics. All right, so use case metrics, I'm gonna have a separate video on software assessment, sizing, complexity, estimating, much later on. For those of you that are interested, select help down below. When you go ahead and you click that, it'll launch the Sparx site around estimating project size, This is using use case points, which is rather old use case metrics approach, but still valuable in sizing the complexity of your particular effort. So it'll go through and help you understand use case points, how they're applied, and how they're used in Sparx Enterprise Architect. All right, last but not least, we're going over on the right subgroup within project management. So the first one is risk. I'm going to go ahead and select it. You get a project tools that pops up. I usually keep it in the lower right, but let's leave it up in the middle of the screen for you. So risk management is mission critical to any project. So in here, you can add new risks, you can manage those risks, and so on. Next is metrics. So as soon as I select it, it went from the risk tab to the metrics tab. And you can add new metrics. You get a window that pops up for dialog for metrics. Metrics around cost, breakage, change, progress. Let's see, I think I skipped over the risk one. When you're adding a new risk, you have a risk dialog that pops up. Again, risk around cost. I think there's some other types you can add, because usually there's risk around cost, performance, and some other ones that can be set. All right. I do risk management on another platform, but this is valuable. You can assign a weight, and we'll talk about that more when we get into use case points and how weights are applied to particular elements within your model-driven architecture, your model-driven delivery exercises. So, and you can hit the help button. Again, like normal, it will launch the risk management window in Sparx, and you can read all about it there. And then effort. So all it did in the project tools is it immediately went to the effort tab, and you can add, go ahead and click at a new effort dialog, and the effort around the various stages from analysis, coding, construction, design, testing, elaboration, transformation, or transition rather. So, you're moving from current mode of operation to future mode of operation, or there's some other transitionary architecture within the project or the work effort that you're doing. So you can manage all of that within project tools in Sparx Enterprise Architect. And again, I like it over here in the lower right window and right to the right of traceability. So normally where I put it when I have that particular workspace up. All right, so let's recap. So first off, I did not achieve my 30-minute objective. I like to try to keep these under 30 minutes. You can already see in this particular session, I've gone over a couple of times. So I'll have chapters down below. You'll be able to select through them. We went through resource management. We touched on test management, very lightly touched on it, change management, and project management. So in our next session, we're going to be going to the specialized tab, but back over on the construct tab. This is the most important tab to me in the Sparx tooling. Sparx is extremely powerful for doing modeling, drawing pictures, doing drawings, and then putting a plethora of intelligence under all of the elements. Sparx supports a plethora of industry standard technologies via model-driven generation and other means. We're just touching on a very small percent of what Sparx Enterprise can do versus a lot of the other modeling and drawing tools that I also use. And I'll be talking about in this channel, but I always come back to Sparx, because when I start to expose the power of the Sparx architecture, the platform, the versatility, especially with your own intelligence owned by you, can either be local to a data source in any SQL server, many SQL server technologies, and then out in the cloud, whether you're in Azure cloud or your AWS cloud. We've deployed Sparx in both of them, and it works very, very well. So we'll be showing all of that in this channel as we're going through various subject areas. There's going to be lots of playlists, and hopefully I'm able to answer your questions and concerns. Again, please comment down below, good or bad. Looking for the feedback, the direction as we're sharing and learning together. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to y'all later.